Hello and welcome back to another video. If the camera quality looks a little bit off, I'm using my backup camera to record this video. But we got a very exciting video. I'm going to be reacting to Bleacher Report's The Biggest Reason to Doubt Every Projected NBA Playoff Team. So obviously my Charlotte Hornets are steadily at the 8th seed in the East. So it's going to be interesting what they think our biggest doubt is. I would probably say our bench pieces. Like, I'm not concerned about Terry Rozier. I'm not concerned about Gordon Hayward. I'm not even concerned about LaMelo Ball. I'm concerned about the Miles Bridges, who is probably going to come off the bench if Gordon Hayward comes back this season. I'm concerned about Brad Wanamaker, as he's consistently getting about 10 minutes a night for us. I'm concerned about Malik Monk, who has not played in major minutes this year. Jalen McDaniels. That's probably my biggest doubt as far as this article goes. So let's get right into it. For the Brooklyn Nets defense, that's pretty obvious. Obviously, they probably have the greatest offensive firepower in the history of the game. I'm putting them above the 2016. I had to think about it. 2016 Warriors teams with Kevin Durant. But can their offense really outshine their defense is probably my biggest doubt. Obviously, they haven't been like the worst defensive team in the league. Obviously, Bruce Brown is providing major defensive minutes for them. Nicholas Claxton's been better. Jeff Green is doing his all as a small ball five. So, yeah, defense, they're 24th in the NBA right now in defensive rating. So, yeah, that's probably the best one. 76ers turnovers. For the 76ers, my biggest doubt would be how well Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid play together in the playoffs, because you have to face it. The postseason, people can really expose the non-3-point shooting, and they can really hone in on your top guys. So I think, last season, Ben Simmons hurt himself before the playoffs, so we only got to see Joel Embiid play. And the year before that, they didn't really play that well together. So it'll be interesting how well they play together. And I think above turnovers, because they're not, Joel Embiid is an MVP caliber player right now, so I don't think turnovers are as big as their top two guys playing well together in the playoffs. So next team we have is the Bucks. Flexibility. I think what they mean by flexibility, at least what I would think, is as far as their coaching goes, you've seen in the last 3 off seasons how they haven't really switched up their defensive scheme when it comes to the playoffs, and they can get away with it in the regular season, just staying in the paint and not really closing out on 3-point shooting teams because it's a regular season, and they're a great regular season team. But when it gets to the playoffs, you can't really do that. You can't really let players shoot on the outside, and they've got exposed in the last 3, maybe 4 off seasons where Coach Bud, their head coach, doesn't really like to change offensive schemes as well as defensive schemes. So I think if that's what they mean by flexibility, I think that's a great one. So New York Knicks offensive efficiency. Yeah, I think their defense is fine, as well as they got veteran leadership to really coach up Julius Randle, Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett. They got Derrick Rose and Taj Gibson to really show them the light when it comes to the postseason, because it is a different game, let's face it, from the regular season to the postseason. Offensive efficiency is a great one, because I don't think they're doing that well this season. Despite the scorching shooting driven by the 9-game winning streak, New York ranks in the bottom 10 in both offensive rating and effective. I think their defense translates better than offense does in the postseason. So I would say that. For the Hawks, non-Trae Young minutes. Yeah, we'll see how good Lou Will does. Because Lou Will's probably going to get major minutes off the bench when Trae Young isn't in. And they got to get a lot of young pieces that have never been to the playoffs, including Trae Young. So I think it'll be interesting how well Trae Young does in the playoff, because you don't get as many foul calls in the playoffs, and he relies on getting fouled to make most of his points. So it'll be interesting. For the Boston Celtics, inconsistent focus and energy, maybe. I think you can rely on Marcus Smart for that energy. But outside of Marcus Smart and I mean, maybe Jason Tatum. I'm concerned about Jaylen Brown. I'm concerned about Evan Fournier because he hasn't really played major minutes in the playoffs except being like an 8 seed and getting dominated by the Bucks in the last like 2 to 3 off seasons. I'm concerned about Kemba because Kemba hasn't been that great in the playoffs. Even going back to carrying the Hornets, he hasn't. I mean, he scored a lot of points in our series for the Hornets, but he hasn't been effective. He's had to take most of the shots, so it'll be interesting for the Boston Celtics. Miami Heat leveling up will be harder. I don't think they're going to go on that big run like they did last season. I'm not going to call it a hoax like many people will say. I'm not going to say that they only did it because of the bubble, but I will say I think a lot of teams are going to expose their youth, as in Tyler. I don't think Tyler Hero is going to have the kind of offseason as he did last season. I think Jimmy Butler won't be able to carry the team like he did last season. I'm not saying that he's any less better than he was last offseason, but it's hard to carry that. Like, it's like a once-in-a-lifetime thing to be able to carry teams to wins, especially Jimmy Butler, who isn't a MVP caliber player, so it's harder for him to really coach up Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson to go on another finals run. And yeah, for my Charlotte Hornets, this is what the video has been waiting for. They have clutch luck. Interesting. I didn't think about this. I didn't think about this much. Because I would put our inconsistent bench up here with doubts, but clutch luck is a very good one. Because most of our close games this season, we have gotten lucky in the clutch, relying on Terry Rozier to shoot an insane three-point shot, Devontae Graham to shoot an insane three-point shot, or Miles Bridges or PJ Washington to really shine in the last 5 minutes of games. And will that carry on to the playoffs? I don't know. Terry Rozier has been excellent in the playoffs, as well as Gordon Hayward for the Utah teams, not so much the Celtic teams, but that's interesting. That's an interesting idea. Can that luck in the clutch translate to playoff wins? I don't know. That actually took me by surprise. That's a very good one, because their clutch time luck has produced a league best rating and wins. We've been super good in the clutch, and I don't know if that can translate to the playoffs. I guess we'll see. For the Utah Jazz, solving switches. Yeah, I feel like every playoff series, at least for the last 3 years, Rudy Gobert has gotten exposed, and rightfully so. He gets switched on to guards, like you saw that Devin Booker clip. And that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that Rudy Gobert is a bad defender. It's just that that's not his defensive style of play, is to switch on to smaller guards or to switch on to bigs like Jokic. And we'll see how well he does in the playoffs, because last year it was Jokic that exposed him. And the year before that, I'm trying to think of who they play in the playoffs. But yeah, that's a great doubt. And another doubt for the Utah Jazz would probably be their shooting. They're shooting an insane rate right now, and I don't know if that can translate to the playoffs. But we'll see. Utah Jazz are probably the biggest doubt of this season, because they are. I think they're second in the East right now. I think the Suns are the first seed. But yeah, for the Suns, we have too few easy buckets. This is interesting. What does this mean? If you could rely on a player making inefficient mid-range shots to sustain an offense, you'd probably pick Chris Paul. Interesting. Chris Paul loves to take tough shots, especially mid-range shots. For the Suns, what would be my biggest doubt? Probably the same for the Hornets, even though they didn't pick it in this article, would be the supporting cast. You know Chris Paul can show up in the playoffs. Devin Booker, you don't really know. But for the supporting cast, can Frank Kaminsky give them the same quality minutes as he's done throughout the season? I don't know. Can Malik Bridges, can he guard their best player, whoever they play in the playoffs? I don't know either. So it'll be interesting for the Suns. Clippers, chemistry and leadership. It's pretty obvious. The Clippers lack this chemistry. Last season it was because their guys didn't really play together, as in Kawhi and Paul George, throughout the regular season, and they couldn't really mesh together in time for the playoffs, and that led to the 3-1 lead that they had, and then giving up that 3-1 lead to the Nuggets last season. But yeah, chemistry. And who is going to be their leader? Paul George isn't really the best leader. He led those Pacers teams like 6 years ago. Didn't really lead that OKC team because him and Russ were like co-leaders. Kawhi doesn't talk, at least that's his persona, and he kind of leads by example like he did in Toronto. And I would say Kyle Lowry was that leader in Toronto. So it'll be interesting who their actual leader is, because last season it was probably Lou Will. No, I'm not saying Lou Will. I would probably say it was Patrick Beverly. And will Patrick Beverly be their leader? Like, when I think of a leader, I think of LeBron James. I think of Steph Curry. The best guys on the team are usually the leaders. And for the Clippers' sake, I don't think it's their best player. I think it's Patrick Beverly, which is kind of a concern. Anyways, Nuggets, no Jamal Murray. That is probably the biggest doubt. Can Gary Harris give him solid minutes? Can that overseas 5'9" player give him good minutes in the playoffs? I think he will. But yeah, that's a big concern. For the Lakers, LeBron James' prolonged absence, I think they'll be fine. I think we should give some respect on LeBron's name. He's gonna play good minutes when the time comes. I don't really think you can doubt LeBron James after leading a team to a finals for 9 straight years, and I think his supporting cast on this Lakers teams is way better than what he had on the Cavs. So I don't think a doubt can ever be LeBron in the playoffs. I just don't. Even though he is coming back from an injury, I think he'll be fine. For the Mavs, defensive holes, yeah, I would probably just, when I think of Mavs, I think of, especially when it comes to doubts, I think of Kristaps. Can Kristaps defend in the playoffs? Can Kristaps be an offensive threat in the playoffs? We'll see, because Luka's going to bring it. He showed it last year versus the Clippers. Luka is going to bring it, but it's all about Kristaps. And yeah, Trailblazers, you name it. Yeah, I think they relied on Damian Lillard to be clutch for a lot of these past postseasons, and I don't think they can rely on him anymore. I think CJ McCollum has to step up. Any center that they put out there has to step up. Nurkic hasn't really done that. Zach Collins, I think, is injured. Carmelo has to step up. Oh my, yeah. So you can name it with the Portland Trailblazers. I think they're the least threat in the West right now. I don't think any team is scared of facing the Blazers, even with Damian Lillard. Anyways, Warriors, the gimmicks are coming. What does this mean? I am not sure. The Raptors started all of this way back in the Game 2 of the 2019 Finals. Box and one defense to assure that Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant out with injury, Steph Curry wouldn't beat them. Yeah, they might as well do a box and 3 with 3 defenders on Steph Curry and 2 defenders guarding the other 4 players on the court, because, I mean, the Warriors are Steph Curry. Steph Curry is the Warriors, so it'll be interesting in the playoffs how that translates. But yeah, that's going to do it for me. Thanks for watching. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.